evening, everyone. My name is Justin Dyke with Tualatin Valley Water District, and I'm the communications supervisor, and I'd be starting off our presentation this evening. And I want to start, first of all, by thanking everyone for taking time out of their busy evenings to be with us this evening. We appreciate your attendance, and we look forward to talking with you about our rates proposal. Just a quick reminder of how the interface works here on Microsoft Teams. These sessions are recorded. They will be posted to the district's YouTube page afterwards. So if you do find something interesting that you want to watch again, it will be posted on YouTube probably tomorrow morning. Please make sure your microphone is on mute. And we will have a moderated Q&A after the presentation. But at any point during the presentation, if you have a question, feel free to type it into the Q&A at any time. On the middle image there's a red circle on the right. That's the Q&A. It looks like two thought bubbles. You can click into that and type your questions at any point in the presentation. And as well, after the presentation, when we have our Q&A, you can use the raise hand function, the left red circle there, and we can call on you to ask your questions directly to staff. We will be moderating the Q&A, and we will go until there are no more questions left to be asked. So please don't feel that there is any rush, although we will go rather quickly through the material tonight to allow adequate time for any questions that are afterward the presentation. And if you have any accessibility needs, under the left side of the presentation, there are a 3-dot ellipsis, and under there are a lot of options to either magnify or translate the slides to best fit your viewing needs. And this will not change the view for any of the other attendees. It's only for yourself to make the presentation easier for you. And as a reminder, we operate in an inclusive manner, and staff may exclude participants who are disruptive or rude in their questioning or content of their questions. So a little bit of a recap of where we are through today. We've had a couple of both virtual and in-person events similar to this one. We're here in the green box in the middle. This is the third of our open house events in the Talkin Water format. And this is the 1 week from now time period before the public comment period closes for the rates proposal. So 1 week from today is Thursday, August 24th, and all comments on our proposed rates are accepted until 4 p.m. The rate proposal will be voted on the September 20th regular board meeting of our elected Board of Commissioners. And tonight, our presenters will be our CEO, Tom Hickmann, our Willamette Water Supply Program Director, Dave Kraska, and our Chief Financial Officer, Paul Matthews. Without any further delay, I'm pleased to introduce our CEO, Tom Hickmann. Tom, please take it away.
Thank you, Justin. And again, thank you to everyone who's in attendance. We do have a lot of material to cover, so we'll get through this as quickly as we can, so we have time to hear from all of you. So why you're all here is what's driving the rates? Why is this happening? The biggest thing that has occurred to us and that has happened in the last 2 years is the increased cost for the Willamette water supply system. We've seen increases in materials, increases in labor, and we're going to cover that a lot more in detail tonight. Our program manager for the Willamette project is going to be doing a presentation just after me here to go through that in more detail. But what's this mean to you? How's this impact you? So we are talking about starting November 1, an increase of $15.53 starting November 1 to the typical bill that for our customers. And then again in a year on November 1, it will increase again by another $15. You're going to hear a lot tonight from our finance officer, Paul Matthews, who's going to be talking about how did we go about ending up at these rates, and what are we trying to do to mitigate them, and what's the future look like. So we'll be talking a lot about that later on, but just want to be right up front. That's what we're talking about in terms of increases. So what have we been trying to do to offset some of these? Well, we've been trying to get federal and state dollars. We have had some success. We have received $4 million in grants from the federal government for the new treatment plant. And while that we're appreciative of our federal legislator, our federal delegations to help us on that. When you're talking about projects that is in the neighborhood of 1.6 billion, 4 million is a bit of a drop in a bucket. But we continue. We continue to try to find additional money. We also got $5 million in grants for advanced metering infrastructure. This is going to allow us to get everybody on monthly billing. That is a critical step. We know many customers want to get to monthly billing, and this will help us get there over the next 3 to 4 years. And then we also received $11 million in grant funding for our Taylor's Ferry Reservoir. What this is essentially it's allowing us to make seismic upgrades to a critical reservoir that we have. And we did get this $11 million in grants. So we've had some success in receiving federal grants, but we're not done. We continue to pursue both federal and state grants, trying to get assistance. And we're also looking for ways that we can actually get other forms of assistance for our low-income customers. So some of the concerns that we've heard from our customers, this is not a comprehensive list, but it is some of the key stuff we've been hearing. What we've heard is so how does the community benefit? How does an individual rate benefit from this investment in the Willamette water supply? We're going to be covering that in detail here in a bit. So that's one of the main questions we're going to cover. Another one is, are we managing our costs responsibly? How do we know that? What are we doing to make sure that every dollar's being spent as efficiently and as effectively as we can? We'll be covering that as well tonight. And then the other one is a concern that is very understandable, which is, are all the customers, including corporations, paying their fair share? So who's paying? Who's paying for this project, and is it fair to the individual resident? So we're going to cover that. And then lastly, what we're going to hit on is the concern that we've heard about, some of you or your neighbors are in a situation that these are difficult to afford. These are difficult increases to afford. So what are we doing to help those customers that can't afford these increases? We're going to cover that tonight as well. And we'll come back to these questions at the end here to make sure that we've hit on these. But with that, I am going to turn this over to Dave Kraska. He's our Willamette Water Supply Program Director. And Dave, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Tom. And good evening, everybody. Thank you for making some time for us tonight. So as Tom mentioned, I'm the Willamette Water Supply Program Director, and I've got a presentation for you tonight that'll address at least two of the questions that Tom just shared with you. How are we managing the costs on the overall program spend, and what are the benefits to the community? So let's go ahead and get into the presentation. First, I'll start with an overview of our overall Willamette Water Supply Program. We start back in 2013, so 10 years ago, when TVW and Hillsborough were evaluating their long-term water supply options. And the four options that they considered are shown here on the map on the right-hand side of this graphic. Those four options, starting at the top and going clockwise, was a new groundwater supply to the north, built around Salvie Island, continuing and expanding supplies with the city of Portland to the east, going to the Mid-Willamette River to the south, and expanding the storage at Hag Lake to increase the supply through the Joint Water Commission system. Both TVW and Hillsborough evaluated these four options independently from a technical standpoint and a public input standpoint, and both selected the Willamette River as their long-term water supply option for these reasons listed on the left-hand side here. Lower cost of the options considered from a long-term supply standpoint. This is the lowest cost option of them, which means least impact on rates. It has excellent water quality, as proven by now 2 decades of use for the cities of Wilsonville and Sherwood. provides TVWD ownership of its water supply. It's a reliable supply, and of the options considered, it imparts the fewest environmental impacts of those options. So with that selected, a mission was given to us and stated here that I'll read out loud. It's to provide a cost-effective, reliable, and resilient water supply system by July 2026 that benefits the current and future generations of the communities we serve and supports a vibrant local economy. So everything that we're doing on the program is endeavoring to achieve all of these goals, including completion by July 2026. The overall system looks something like this at a very high scale. It starts with our intake on the Willamette River. It's an existing intake that we are increasing the seismic resiliency of and also expanding the capacity of it. We're providing or building a new state-of-the-art water treatment plant in Sherwood, more than 30 miles of large diameter transmission mains connecting it all, and a water storage tank on the top of Cooper Mountain. One of the key elements of this water supply is its seismic resiliency. Not only are we going to take every measure to protect public health and provide high quality drinking water, but it's also going to be a seismically resilient supply with every intent that it is the supply that withstands the Cascadia subduction zone event or any other earthquakes that can come along. And so it's a key component of what we're building is that this investment is intended to last generations. And that's what we want it to do. And so accordingly, it needs to be seismically resilient. Talking about economic considerations, yes, and this gets into some of the additional benefits for the community and also how we're managing cost. Starting off with business utilization, a total of, to date, 78% of our spend so far, about $500 million, according to the last analysis, was spent locally. And that's basically businesses, enterprises that are within 50 miles of all of our operations on the program. Outside of that, it's split evenly between other businesses in Washington and Oregon, but just outside of our 50-mile radius, and then the other proportion, 11% outside of that area. And so it's a great benefit to the community from that standpoint. 455 local businesses are involved in our operations. Wherever we can, we endeavor to perform our work through partnerships. Rather than performing our work independently and alone, we work with cities and counties in the area to complete our work in partnership with them to share costs and reduce public impact. 3 examples are shown here. On the left-hand side here is Kinsman Road Project. That was a partnership project with Wilsonville and ODOT. They were constructing a road in Kinsman, or in Wilsonville, I apologize. And we worked to get our pipeline done at the same time they were building that road. Same operation was done with Washington County when they were constructing the 124th Avenue project in the Sherwood and Tualatin area. And we also work with developers in the area to make sure our pipelines are installed in advance of their development so that we don't impact those developments, slow them down, or impact the residents that are moving in there. Talking about program cost history, where we started and where we are right now. So let's talk about the history of the cost. And that starts again back in 2013 when that technical analysis was done and what was the estimates at that time for this overall program. So back then, the estimated cost of the program was $1.01 billion in 2020 dollars. All of the numbers I'm going to be presenting to you tonight are in 2026 dollars. And so inflating that to 2026, it brings us to $1.24 billion. And that was the estimate done back in 2013 when the decision was made to go to the Willamette River. In 2016, we've been operating as a program to get this work done since 2015. And so in that first year of operations, we worked to complete the preliminary design, perform some value engineering, and also update the cost estimate. And our estimated cost at that time, the initial estimate was $1.3 billion. So we're pretty close to that initial estimate of 1.24. But just a little bit higher. Then each year, as we execute the program, we basically do a public presentation of are we on budget and are we on schedule. And the years you see there, 2016 through 2023, those are fiscal years. And so beginning in July 1 and ending in June 30. And so in 2023 right there, so it goes from 2016 to 2023. And what I'd really like to call your attention to is the third column there where it says total budget. So that's the number that we can compare to the new two numbers I've already presented to you, the original $1.24 billion and the $1.3 billion. And you can see from 2016 to 2021, we were in the $1.2, $1.3 billion range. So I think we were doing a really good job in terms of managing our costs, managing our projections for this overall program. And then you can see what happened between 2021 and 2022. It went up substantially from $1.29 billion to $1.62 billion. Before I go on to the next slide to explain that a little bit, I'd like to call your attention to between 2022 and 2023, you don't see any change. It's 1.62, 1.62. And I believe that when we do the next iteration of this chart in a number of months right now, when we do 2024, it'll still be 1.62. And the reason is now we have, instead of engineers' estimates, now we have contracts for all the construction work that we're doing, and we're managing our costs to those construction contracts. But how did we make the change from 1.3 to 1.62? Well, in late 2021, we were bidding all of our remaining major construction projects. There were about 8 of them all told at that time, and it represented hundreds of millions of dollars of construction activity. At that time, you'll remember we were dealing with the whole COVID situation, shutdown of factories and equipment everywhere, disruptions to labor and transportation and supply chain issues. And everything was starting to ramp back up to meet the need, essentially. And we were bidding all of our work right in the teeth of all of that. And so we did our best to estimate the impacts that we were going to have on the program and on our costs. And you can see that we were off by quite a bit. So the two projects here that I have as example projects of all of that bidding that we were doing at our time were a reservoir and pipeline project and the water treatment plant project. The reservoir project there that you see on the left-hand side, our estimated cost, that was done by our engineers and also with contractor input. We estimated that project was going to cost $117 million. But after we finished bidding that project in a competitive market, we reached out to as many contractors as possible. So they bid against each other. And still the cost was $143 million for that project, so substantially higher. Worse yet was our water treatment plant project. That one, again, our estimate for that one, $292 million. But after competitively bidding all of the work on that project, the current price of that work right now is $427 million. So significantly higher than our estimates when all of the considerations are taken into account with the current economy for all the construction activity that we're doing. Overall, with all of the remaining projects that we had to bid, that led to the $315 million increase, changing our total program budget from 1.3 to $1.6 billion. So with that, we did take a look on whether or not we're still on the right track. As I mentioned early on, there's a long-term study to look at the long-term water supply options. And the other options are listed here on the left-hand side of this chart, the Northern Groundwater Supply, City of Portland, and the Hag Lake Dam Raise project. And looking at what's happened since 2013 in all of those projects, we'll go through them one by one. On the Northern Groundwater Supply, since that time, there hasn't been any movement on that project at all. No studies, planning, investigations, or otherwise. So really, execution of that project is really uncertain. And with that, significant cost risk of it being even higher than it was when we were estimating back in 2013, and it certainly would not be complete by 2026. Regarding the Portland supply, since that time, since 2013, Portland has decided to move forward with its corrosion control project and its filtration project. And if you've been paying attention to the news stories around that one, the latest budget for the water treatment plant project is on the order of about $2 billion. So that project, it would be significantly higher than what was estimated back in 2013. So it'd be much higher costs than what we're dealing with here. It would provide as well a lower level of seismic resiliency, would not provide TBWD ownership of the supply, and it as well would not be done by 2026. And finally, regarding the Hag Lake Dam Raise project, that project was a partnership with the Bureau of Reclamation to raise Scoggins Dam to increase the capacity of Hag Lake. And since that time, the Department of Reclamation has decided to not increase the capacity, not raise Scoggins Dam. Their current plans are to replace Scoggins Dam with a seismically resilient dam, but not to increase its capacity. So it would not provide the capacity that we would need, and it would not as well be done by 2026. So again, reconsidering all of these options. We're still on the right track because the other options, quite frankly, at this point are fatally flawed. So with that, what are we doing to manage costs? Well, the fight is not over in doing that. We're still doing everything we possibly can. Here are 7 ways that we're still working to do that, to control costs, to aim below the $1.6 billion that is currently in our budget. So far, we've cut more than $50 million in project costs. We've deferred what we can to the future. We're maximizing competition for any remaining work, any projects that we can rebid. When we do select contractors, we still negotiate for the best price and quality for any services and goods. There's still engineering decisions being made with all of our construction projects, and we're working with our contractors to make those as cost effective as possible, managing all of our risks so that they aren't realized and we don't have to pay for their outcomes. Partnering on all of our projects as often as we can. We're still doing that successfully, and rigorously managing everything to stay on schedule. If we have any hope of staying within the $1.6 billion, it's critical that we stay on schedule. So I want to present to you some construction highlights. Just where is all of that money being spent? Well, right now it's on 14 projects. This chart lists in our nomenclature all the different projects we have going on around all over the county. If you've driven on Shoals Ferry Road or Roy Rogers Road or Cornelius Pass Road or down in Wilsonville, you've seen our construction activity. Tualatin and Sherwood Road, we're everywhere, and as well as on our facilities projects. So this photo here shows you down at the Willamette River there in the background, some of the seismic improvement work that we did for the raw water facility project. That's the gray structure. The gray structure on the left-hand side there is the pump station for it. We did the seismic resiliency improvements. That's our only intake to the Willamette River, so we need to know that it's going to last the seismic event, and we're prepared for it now. As well, we've this is a little bit more of that shot in Wilsonville. That's the Wilsonville water treatment plant, and we've reopened the park on the next to the treatment plant. But up at the upper site near the treatment plant is our electrical facility that we're about. You can see on this structure we're about halfway through building that structure, and all of our electrical equipment will go within it, as well as the standby generators to provide reliable power supply during any sort of emergency event. Our pipeline projects, like I mentioned, are occurring all over Washington County, and they look like this. A lot of shoring, a lot of traffic disruption, the large 66-inch diameter transmission main going in the roadways and in other areas. And we're getting that work done, like I mentioned, we have 11 different pipeline projects going on right now. This is our water treatment plant project. The road that you see there on the left-hand side is Southwest 124th Avenue. This is obviously an aerial drone shot. So just below this photo is Tualatin and Sherwood Roads. That gives you kind of an idea of what you're looking at here. To the right of this photo is Sherwood, to the left is Tualatin. It's about a 20-acre site, and we have construction activity occurring everywhere on it. One of the key things about this site, it's rock. And so it's a very, very stable foundation for the most expensive and most complex part of our new reliable water supply. And we think it's an excellent location for it. Sometimes we do our construction activity at night so that we don't impact businesses and traffic. We minimize that to the greatest extent possible. And we're also building our reservoir on the top of Cooper Mountain. Deep into this photo is the reservoir site, and you can see also some of the pipeline that's being strung along there. That has been installed for connection to the future reservoir on top of Cooper Mountain, right on the side of Grabhorn Road. And that's the end of my part of the presentation. I'm going to step aside now and hand it off to Paul Matthews to talk about the financial issues. Take it away, Paul. You there, Paul?
Sorry about that.
There we go.
Along with Tom and Dave, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you, Dave, for your presentation. I want to continue on with Dave's discussion of how we were able to save money, how we're managing cost. And in addition to the important work that Dave and his team does, we also have been focused on our operating expense. In fact, the CEO has put a keen effort on managing those operating expenses. Our fiscal year, which ended on June 30th of this year, during that biennium period, In fact, through our operational savings, we've saved an additional $12 million that will then be available to offset cost to our customers. We mentioned some of the capital projects that the program deferred, but we're also deferring capital projects within our own CIP and prioritizing the projects that bring the most important projects most timely. And we do partner with other entities. In fact, many of you receive, I suspect, a joint bill with Clean Water Services. That's a separate agency that does the stormwater and the sanitary sewer services. They're a separate governmental entity, but we jointly bill together to save money on preparing the bills, postage, and the payment collections. So that's an example where we partner with local governments. In fact, we do that not just within the program, but we do that by reading meters for the city of Beaverton and other activities that we provide for other utilities to get economies of scale out of the work that we do. And Tom mentioned the resource that we're working on with federal grants, but another thing that I want to highlight is $6 million of interest earnings that we were able to achieve. As the economy changed and interest rates went up, we were able to change our strategy on drawing our money from our low interest loan that we have with the EPA. And by just changing that strategy and making some prudent investments, we were able to generate an extra $6 million of interest earnings that is there available to help our customers. So I want to highlight another aspect of how we save customers money too, which is on our healthcare costs. So just like most employers, the district, one of its most significant benefit cost is, in fact, health insurance for its employees. The district purchases a high deductible plan. We self-insure for a portion of that deductible, and we have a wellness plan at the district that provides an incentive to employees to effectively use the healthcare costs. And the proof of that comes in a 4.5% reduction. That's a decrease in our healthcare premium that the district had its most recent renewal period this January. So we're able to actually reduce our costs by 4.5%. And this is an environment where healthcare costs are going up for other employers. So we're really happy about that. I mentioned the WIFIA draw because that's, again, us focusing on other aspects to reduce the burden on our customers by taking money that we had, a low interest loan with the EPA, where we're paying 1.35% interest on that. And we're able to buy US Treasuries, safe investments, and we're able to do that in a way that generates $6 million to offset the cost for our customers. We're talking about the major drivers of the rates. Mr. Kraska just talked about the addition of our new water supply program, and that's obviously an important part of driver of our rates. In addition to that, though, we need to maintain the assets, the current infrastructure that we have, and operate that. Our operating expenses for power, fuel, and everything else are going up, as many of us are experiencing in our personal lives. And then the last item I want to talk about here is our purchase water. Right now, the city, we buy most of our water from the city of Portland. And this year we got a 26% increase in our wholesale rate from the city of Portland. Of course, that has to be integrated into our financial plan and be funded as well. I want to put some of these numbers in context here. We're showing here three fiscal years, FY 2024. That's fiscal year 2024, which is the current fiscal year we're in, runs from July 1 of 2023 through June 30 of 2024. And what this graph shows, this chart shows, is the amount of money that we spend on personnel services, material and services, and rate fund capital and debt service. So let's start with the personnel services that you see there, the green area on the chart. That's all the cost of having employees. That'd be salary and wages. It would include benefit costs like the healthcare that I mentioned. All those costs are wrapped up into that. The blue area are the costs that are the material and services that we purchase. So this would include, for example, power that we buy to pump the water through the system. Fuel we purchase to operate our vehicles. The postage that we pay to the postal service to deliver the bill. All those services are material and services budget. They're highlighted there in blue. The gray area is actually money that we bring in from rates that are used to pay for our capital expenditures. So this is money invested in the projects that Dave described and some of the other important projects within the district that we need to complete. The red area at the very top there is our debt service. So as you can see, our debt service is scheduled to increase over time. By 2030, we'll stabilize and that will be the debt service that we'll be servicing for approximately the next 30 odd years. So driving this is our near-term infrastructure investments. Presented here is an area chart that shows our investment in capital outlay. Now, we've been watching this wave come at us for the past 10 years as we've experienced, as we prepare for the Willamette Water Supply Program. That dark gray area that you see at the bottom is our in-district CIP. That also includes what we call our Metzger Pipeline East, which is a major pipeline that is going to deliver the Willamette water to through our Metzger service area in the eastern part of the Wolf Creek service area. That project's actually being delivered by Dave's team, but that's within our CIP. The blue area that you see there is investment in the Willamette water supply system. And that, of course, is our huge investment. And you can see by 2026, that will ramp down. And then we will largely be done with some of the deferred projects coming on a little bit later in 2032 and 2033. We're funding that with debt. So on this chart, we've superimposed actual use of bond proceeds to fund the project. The hashed bar that you see on the left-hand side for fiscal year 2024, that is our low-interest WIFI loan. We continue to consume that. It's a loan that you submit your cost to the EPA and you get refunded. We'll go through that entire loan in this fiscal year. And the following fiscal year, we plan to issue new revenue bonds. We may go for another WIFI loan. It'll depend on interest rates and the bond market to actually get another $120 million essentially to complete the Willamette water supply system. So one of the questions, as Tom indicated, that we get is whether or not all of our customers, including corporations, are paying their fair share. Presented here is the proportion of meters connected to the system. If you look at our customer base, about 95% of the meters connected to our system are single-family residential meters, or I'm sorry, residential, single-family and multifamily customers that connect to the system. Our commercial customers are about 2%. Other, which would be fire lines and irrigation, are about 3%. And then you see the industrial customer. There are 23 of those customers. It's such a small group that it doesn't, there aren't enough decimal points to show a percentage there, but there are 23 customers in that industrial group. If we look from a revenue perspective, though, about 70% of our revenue is coming from the residential customers, about 13% from the commercial. Those 23 customers represent about 8% of our revenue. So that's how the costs get distributed amongst the customers. And I want to show an example of an increase that will be occurring for one of our industrial customers. So these customers, this is presented here on a monthly basis. After the rates go into effect, if these rates are adopted in November of 2023, their monthly water bill will go up by about $44,000 a month. And then November 24, about another $43,000. So the district uses cost of service as the basis for its water rates. That is, we set rates in proportion to the cost that customers impose upon the system. We use industry standard approaches to make sure that proportion is maintained. This avoids subsidies among customer classes and ensures that customers pay their fair share. In addition to that, we use system development charges, which are charges when a new customer, a new home is built or new business is connected to the system. It's a one-time capital charge to offset the cost of growth so that we ensure that our existing customers are not subsidizing growth. And one of the questions we also receive is the concern about some customers who may not be able to afford the investments that we're making in the Willamette, and what are we going to do to assist them. Back in 2016-17, the district convened a rate advisory committee, and then again in 2022, we reconvened a rate advisory committee to ask them to provide the board recommendations on this very question. There were two questions that were asked, but the one at the top here, the more important one that we want to talk about tonight, is the affordability for financially vulnerable customers. That rate advisory committee was convened across our customer base. We had a diverse group of customers, and we can't be thankful enough for the work they did. These folks volunteered their time. They came in for 2-hour plus meetings, about 6 of them, and they had work that they did reading material we provided them during between meetings. But these folks attended those meetings and gave our board a recommendation. In fact, we're fortunate that the Rate Advisory Committee gave a unanimous recommendation to the board that we should have a customer assistance program and that we should maintain the district's existing customer emergency assistance program. So the new customer assistance program was included in the budget that was adopted. And just to kind of highlight a couple of the key features. First, the qualifications will be for low-income customers. These will be customers that are at 50% of the median household income in Oregon. That is the same qualification for the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which is a federal program that's available to help people pay for heating their homes. That qualification then will make it easy for customers who meet that standard to also qualify for TVW's Customer Assistance Program. The recommendation was that the assistance be a 20% discount to the customer's water bill. The reason for the 20% discount, the Rate Advisory Committee wanted it to be make sure that for large families that had high water bills because they have large families would have a discount that scaled with them. And then the last question here is how would the customer assistance program be funded? The recommendation was that it be recovered proportionately from all customers based on the fixed and volume charges. So I want to highlight the proposed adjustments to water rates that here tonight. The district has two charges, a fixed charge, which is based on the size of your meter, and then a volume charges, which are based on the amount of water you use. On the fixed charges, that includes the cost of reading the meters, maintaining the services. It also includes a portion of the district's cost of providing a public fire protection system. So even customers that aren't using water, we do provide fire protection in their neighborhoods. Presented here are the proposed charges for November 2023 and November 2024. They do vary based on meter size, again, to maintain that cost to service larger meters impose a greater cost on the district. The district has a two-block structure for its volume rates. The first block is provides water up to 28 CCF over a 2-month period or 14 CCF in a 1-month period. Most of our residential customers are billed on a 2-month basis, a bi-monthly basis, but we present these numbers generally on a monthly basis to make it easier to compare to their other utility bills. For non-single-family residential customers, it's actually based on 140% of their average 12-month average water usage. Looking at the impact on typical customers, the most common bill the district issues is a 7 CCF, that's 700 cubic feet of water in a monthly basis, 14 over a 2-month basis for a 5/8 inch meter. So that's the standard single family residential meter. And the most common bill that we issue is that 7 CCF. That's about 5,236 gallons of water, or I sometimes say 22 tons of water that we deliver. The increase that you can see here in the fixed and the volume charge, the totals out to about $15.50 in November 1 of 2023, and then about $15 November of 2024. We also looked at the impact on customers that are above average. So here's an above average customer that uses approximately 9,000 gallons per month. That's 12 CCF per month or 24 CCF over a 2-month period. It's about 37 tons of water per month. We're talking about a $23 increase approximately in November of 23 and 22.5 increase in November of 24. And then we looked at a very large customer. This is someone who uses about 87 tons of water per month, 21,000 gallons per month, or over a 2-month period. That's 42,000 gallons of water. That's 28 CCF per month or 56 over that 2-month period. They would see an increase that's shown here on this chart. So that'll turn it back over to our CEO, Tom.
Thank you, Paul. Oops, I lost the presentation there. Justin, is there a way you can pull that back up for me?
I'm still seeing it on my screen, Tom. but
There we go. Let me
back.
try to take control again. Sorry. There we go. So we endeavored to answer these questions. I gave these questions at the start. So how will the community benefit from the current investments in the Willamette? Well, you heard Dave Kraska talk about the resiliency, the seismic resiliency of this water supply. Why is that so important to you? This is a situation where we want to be in a position that we've made these investments ahead of time so that after a seismic event occurs, we're in a position to keep everyone in water or get them back into water very quickly. We also want to make sure that we don't have an economic collapse as a result of no water supply in the region. So we want to make sure that people can get back to their jobs. That all helps us rebuild after an event. So this is a significant investment in a seismically resilient supply. And it does benefit all of us after a seismic event occurs. But it also creates a more reliable supply that we haven't the supplies that we currently have, we don't directly own. This gives us a little more control to own this jointly with our partners. We talked about managing costs responsibly. We certainly believe we are, and as Dave Kraska pointed out, as well as Paul Matthews, we are doing everything we can to bid projects in a competitive manner to get the lowest possible cost. But we're also doing things where we're investing money. That this is money that we have received from WIFIA, where we are investing it before we need to spend it on the project, and that is also bringing in income. So we're doing our best to manage costs and stay on top of them. But there are things like pandemics and other things that happen outside our control. You heard about all of our customers, and that essentially, while 95% of our customers are residential, they pay for about 70% of our total costs. So the remaining 30% is paid for by corporate or businesses that are using our water. So we do believe everyone is paying their fair share. And then the issue of affordability. We certainly understand the concerns people have. As you heard from Paul Matthews, we had a rate advisory committee that made a recommendation that our board adopted and just approved in our recently approved new budget that allows us to help the lowest income folks in our district and those that we serve. So that is a program we're working on getting up and running. It's going to take us some time. There's some processes and things we need to put in place, but we hope to have that up and running and available to our customers before the end of this year. So we're actively working on that. We understand that nobody wants these increases. And we, certainly myself and the board would prefer to be in a different position and not have to be bringing these to you. One of the things I like to point out and a thing to consider here is when this project is all said and done, we'll be delivering water to our customers for about 2 cents a gallon. That is a remarkable feat. That is a remarkable rate for a natural resource delivered to people's homes at their demand 24/7. It's a pretty good deal when you compare that to other options. And And then lastly, I do want to point out that we do have some Board of Commissioners here tonight with us. We have Commissioner Duggan, Commissioner Doan, and Commissioner Lysak, who are all in attendance tonight. And I can tell you that our board takes all of the input we've received from our customers very seriously. It is all considered. We as staff take it very seriously, and we read everything we get from our customers. And where we can make adjustments, we do try, but we've made a lot of adjustments to get to here. We've made cuts and delayed investments, trying to get us over this significant financial hurdle. And as you heard from Paul, it's in a couple of years, we'll be through this, and we all will be better off for it. But right now we're at that pain point, and we certainly understand it is painful for our customers to be having to pay this increase. One last thing. If you take a look, if you start comparing rates and what people are paying, if you start comparing them to some of our partners on this project or even throughout the region, one of the things to remember is of the increase that Dave Kraska identified, that $320 some million, TVWD's portion of that increase is about $220 million. That is based on our usage, the amount of investment that we're making, our share of that investment into the Willamette water supply. So this is hitting TVWD harder than it is our partners. It's just one of those unfortunate things. That's how it's worked out. And we will continue to try to find ways and find dollars that can help our customers. So with that, Justin, I am going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Tom. We do have a couple comments and questions in the chat and the Q&A. I'm going to start with one in the chat from Daryl, who writes a really great comment to us. And before I start reading Daryl's comment, I just want to remind folks, go ahead, please type anything that you have that you want to ask of our staff here, of Dave, Paul, or Tom, into the Q&A, and we'll get to these. And when we're done with these, the meeting will end. So with no further ado, Daryl writes, "You've outlined the necessity of the acquisition of this valuable resource well. We must pay for what we get, and the infrastructure just is. I have over the years attempted to lower my consumption and have done well. I do go a little far sometimes. One sink in the bin for gray water that I throw back on my non-edibles, drip system or hand water in my veggies, yellow mellow in the toilet, and okra on the lawn, but it works. I average 4 cc per double month bill. We all can do it. TVWD could support that effort with noticeable incentives. I wonder if adjusting the thresholds would promote change toward conservancy. Allow me to use what I think are correct numbers here. Your experts spoke rightly 28 CCF as an extreme usage and a major rate threshold, but why is there such a gap between 7 CCF and 28 CCF? I propose that there be intermediary thresholds representing checkpoints at which consumers themselves can say enough to their household use and to strive for conservancy and see their rates lower because of it, or not care at all and see their rates even higher because of it. Why wait until 28 CCF? Incentivize conservancy monetarily with more thresholds of awareness and accountability. I have the power to preserve this valuable resource and to reap the benefits by doing so, should be the community mantra. I volunteer to serve on such a committee. Thank you." So not any question there directly, Daryl, but we do thank you for this. And I want to see Paul or Tom, would you have anything you'd like to add to that before we move on to the next comment?
I'll let Paul take
this. Thank you, Tom. I may want to highlight that one of the proposals that came from our rate advisory committee was to look at issues like this, would be the block thresholds as well as the fixed charges. So we have that programmed after we get through the financing of the Willamette. We're going to look at our cost of service again, because with the new source, switching from Portland to the Willamette, our cost of service will change, and we will realign these block thresholds and the rates after we have those costs fully understood. So great comment. And in fact, it's on our work plan to do, and was a similar recommendation from the Rate Advisory Committee. And thank you for volunteering, because we will undoubtedly convene a committee to help us assess these things and make recommendations to the board. So really appreciate that.
Great, thank you, Paul. And I see one hand raised from William. William, would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question? William, it looks like you're off mute, but I'm not able to hear you. All right, William, I know we had this trouble with you yesterday evening as well, and I apologize you're not able to get the comment as you wish. If you'd like, you can type that into either the chat or the Q&A function if you're able to do that as well. We would most definitely enjoy hearing from you, and if those don't work from you, we will put a link in our chat or in the chat for the group here to the rates website where public comment is also being collected. We do want to make sure we hear from you. All right, well, I think we're experiencing some technical difficulties there. We do have another comment in the Q&A from there's not a name assigned to this one, but the comment reads as, what is average water bill for a summer month when the bills are higher because of yard watering, hotter weather causing pond water loss, etc.? Paul, would you be able to discuss average summer bills?
Yeah, so it really depends on the customer. So in averages, obviously we have some customers that have quite high usage, but typical customer would have, an average customer during that peak season would have about 14 CCF per month or 28 in that 2-month period. So anything above that would be considered above average. And we did have an example for the 12 CCF customer. So to that, you could add about, to the $128 or the $151, you could add about another $10 to $15 to that amount. And that would give you pretty close to what the average is.
Thank you, Paul. And William, looks like you got your camera on. Do you want to try and take another shot at talking to us? Still can't hear you, sir.
He may want to consider unplugging his headset and seeing if he can't use the PC mic.
Okay.
There we go. We can hear you.
Okay. Finally, yeah, I had 2 different systems, and I'll use the camera system here, just a little bit more comprehensive. Do I have opportunity to comment now, or are you going to do somebody else?
Floor is yours, William.
Okay, thank you very much. I've been looking over, the various rates and things like that, and the various consumer price indexes and everything else. And as anybody would realize that the dynamics with the progress of the rates from 2012 till now with the water system is really a lot more than with the regular consumer price index, or also there's one that's used by Engineering News Record, things like that. There's really no comparison. But I also wanted to touch base with, it's my understanding, reading from the city of Portland sales data, that their rates since the 2018 to 2019 period till now is the general rate increase over the period is a little less than 10%. I calculated it at 9.5%. And during that time, they've raised rates and lowered rates. And right now it's with respect to 2018 and 19, the way they count their year, it's almost 10% more instead of a lot of the other user or consumption amounts. And their rates are in the neighborhood of $1.35 per 100 cubic feet. That's the wholesale rate. And also the wholesale rate in 2018 was $2.23 a 100 cubic feet. In other words, they have not raised their rate a significant amount. Well, it's significant, but it's not on the order of what we're getting. But also, I have looked over some of the articles of how we got here. And I see that in April of 2013, TVW established a long-term water supply series of reports. And I'm looking at technical memorandum number 3 on page 6 of 21, where it talks about what the costs are so projected to be on these projects, the different options. There were these 4 options. And they are in the neighborhood of the mid-Willamette water system was in the neighborhood of $480 million, complete turnkey system. Whereas if they stayed with and kept with the Portland supply system, it was in the neighborhood of $340 million. So there's a little bit of difference there of about $140 million. And I understand that 2 things are significantly different between what's going on now and what would be happening if we were using City of Portland water. Generally, we would not be spending as much energy pumping water out of the Willamette River and through the the water treatment plant and to all the reservoirs and everything else. Everybody, I think, on your board realizes that the bulk of the water comes from Bull Run down through the city. There are some pumping, but generally it comes by gravity. And gravity, I learned as being an engineer, is you manage it to your advantage. It is a sweetheart deal. There's nothing on this earth that is anything better than moving any kind of a product by gravity. And that's 2 of my comments. I just don't understand why we're talking back on this report. It was by HDR and other people, where the projected price was less than half of what you came in here when you set up the budget for this whole project. Do you understand what I'm saying? And
yes,
then I can understand the inflation and everything, but that is my point. In other words, if somebody would have said or saw that we were talking about initially $1 billion back in 2013, I think people would start wondering, is this really what we want to do?
So if I could, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Please, William, complete.
Okay, what I'm saying is that constructing this project at $1 billion, let's say, and say we're going to have a life expectancy of 30 years or 35 years, the annual cost for that is over $30 million a year. And that's not paying for the interest. The interest is another order of about $35 million a year. So we are paying nearly $65 million for something that does not produce any water. It's something that we have expended, it's there, and the only way that you get any material out of it or any benefit from it is when you turn on the switches, turn on your electricity, and start spending more money and getting water to the people. That's a couple of things what I had to say. Another thing is that I was bewildered that the reservoirs out by Scroggin Dam, Hag Lake, and the other lake has not been addressed because the Tualatin Valley Irrigation District, I don't know if anybody has ever looked at them very much to find out what they do. They have all kinds of water. That's their source of operations and things. but their unit cost varies from 13.3 cents per 100 cubic feet to 4 cents per 100 cubic feet. In other words, this is raw water. I understand that. And I understand that to treat the water, it costs something. And this report by HDR, about $1.40 per 100 cubic feet. What I'm trying to say is that we are stuck with what we have, but I think we could have saved a lot of energy, especially electricity, from the duration of this project. And I understand that. I'm a retired civil engineer. I've worked on several water systems, and I've never had any situation this large. Largest jobs I ever worked on was about $5 to $6 million. And those jobs are projects that I took it from the very beginning of the project, designed it, put it out to bid, managed the construction, wrapped it up, and handed it back to the owners. And I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things, especially about gravity, because we used a lot of elevated tanks, and I designed things for about, they were, in my opinion, very efficient, and customers were happy. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I am a person that I look at these rates and I am bewildered. Okay. City of Hillsborough, a lot of people are complaining about that. And there were a lot of people way back before 2013 that were talking about we should never address using water from the Willamette River. But anyway, that's all I have to say. I know that the whole system is stuck with what you have. And I do know that you do have some good contractors out there. I worked with one of them, company Hewitt. I guess they're doing the plant. You got a big change order last fall. I understand how they work. And they're a real good company. But I can assure you of one thing, they're about 3 steps ahead of you. They know how to run an operation and make money. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, William. And Paul, would you like to start a response to that?
Well, I don't know if William really wants us to respond to everything, but I did want to address a couple of things that came to mind. In the 2013 report, actually, what that is probably poorly described in the tech memo. What that was a comparison of the the 4 options rather, and it was a difference between the options and then a present value though. So it never was developed as a budget for the project. It was identified really to have 2 functions. One was to look at which one had the lowest net present value, and there's a risk assessment associated with that. And that's the numbers you're citing. And then the second part would be the financeability of it and the impact on rates. So we didn't actually prepare the budget because the project hadn't reached a design state. We looked at the differences in the projected cost between the options. And I think that explains that. Some of the other comments, maybe others would address, but I wanted to let you know that that was the purpose of the 2013 report.
Okay. Okay, and I understand that to some degree, but I think when it was decided which one of the 4 options DVW he was going to use, that it should have at least had some fairly precise financial data. You know, I understand that planning these things, yeah, you're going to have a lot of problems and things like that, but there should have been you know, somebody with an understanding that has done these kind of projects before that would know that if it's going to be next to the Willamette River where you're going to have your intake structure, that the river doesn't stay in one place necessarily, and things like that, and how hard it is to install all kinds of pipes and stuff. It's hard. I understand that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, William. We appreciate and we're glad you were able to get through the
Okay,
technology
yeah,
hurdles to
Yeah.
be able to interact with us. We do really appreciate your comment.
okay. Thanks a lot, and then thanks for, I guess, yesterday I understood, on the mute mic situation yesterday, I addressed it, on the column where everybody was individuals. That's the way, I think Zoom does it, where you unmute or mute yourself or something like that. That's
All right. And so we do have, well, I should actually say before we move on to anything else, Tom, is there anything else you'd like to add to?
Well, I other than I appreciate William's comments as well. And what I can assure you, William, is that we've had the team of engineers that we've had involved on this and led by Dave Kraska, all very talented people. I've worked in the business for many years myself, and they are a pretty outstanding team that are on top of this project. And I would put them up against any contractor that wants to be clever. So
Field construction, they are, as you realize, one of the biggest contractors in the world.
Yeah.
And I worked on highway projects and bridges and things like that. And there was a time when we had a problem, and on the 4th of July, we had a rest stop along an interstate highway that they lost their water, and I called their office up in Omaha, talked to a vice president. They got a hold of their maintenance man down where we were, and we went go to work on 4th of July. So
yeah.
Anyway, they are a good contractor. There's no doubt about it. And you all know that.
Yeah.
You
So
I
did want to real quickly. You brought up the TV irrigation district,
Yeah.
and and I fully understand that situation, and do understand that the irrigation district is subsidized through the Bureau of Reclamation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is not something we get the advantage of, unfortunately.
Okay.
I wish we were, but we are not. And so
I didn't realize that they were subsidized to what amount,
Yeah, a significant amount. And so that makes a big difference in their ability to provide raw water at a very low cost.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll stop there. And Dave, I don't know if you wanted to say anything or add anything to that, but I just wanted you to be assured we are on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to any of that, except I just wanted to, sir, your name is Mr. Pokorny? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Pokorny, yes.
Pokorny. Okay, so yeah. Well, thank you for your time tonight and last night, and for your comments. I just want to share with you, as an engineer, I'm a fan of gravity too. Big fan of gravity. Wherever we can use it. I was not involved in the studies that were done back in 2013, but what I believe it's as you know, as an engineer, when you do these sorts of evaluations, there's pros and cons to each of the options, and certainly we're raising the water about 400 feet from the Willamette River to where it ultimately is delivered to as a static lift.
Right.
And so that is a cost of this water supply that was acquired. It's a water supply right that was acquired by TVWD back in the 70s. So we're completing this work. The one other thing I wanted to respond to was the number that I presented earlier in the evening, the $1.01 billion, was from a public study. It was a public number that was shared back then. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I know we can share it with you if you'd like. We can share that with you after the meeting. The last thing is about Kiewit. They are doing our raw water facilities project. So the project that's down at the Willamette River for our raw water intake to deliver the water into our transmission main to our treatment plant up in Sherwood. Kiewit, the team that we have there, all contractors have different teams of different quality. I think we have one of Kiewit's best teams on our raw water facility project. They've been a great partner on this project. And you are correct. Contractors are very skilled at separating you from your money. And so being on top of that every step of the way, we are. And I have a great team. The partners on this project, TVW Hillsborough and Beaverton, have given me the tools to hire the people I need to monitor not only the quality of the work, but the execution of the work and how we're spending the money. So to the best of our abilities, we can stay lockstep, if not ahead of the contractors. We're doing everything we can to do that. I share your concerns about contractors and their ability to separate you from your money. But our job is to make sure we're extracting as much value as we possibly can for every dime spent. So just wanted to share those reactions with you.
I understand. They're very good.
They are.
They're very good. I mean, when it comes to it, they will give you a product that, you're going to be happy with. And whenever they do make their own mistakes and things like that, they correct them internally and things like that. I've seen them whereabouts they've done some. They've made some mistakes and they fix them.
They're not
and they might tell you about it, laugh for a little while, and fix it. Go on. That's what they do.
William, there was you were talking about some of the early estimations, and there's a couple things I did want to hit on that I just got reminded of. So one is the cost of when we looked at the raise at Hag Lake, that dam raise, that the cost of that project went up significantly, and was going to be managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. And we had little control over the timing of when that would be done. In fact, still don't. And it's really our partner, Hillsborough, would be the primary one responsible with that one. And that was thoroughly analyzed, thoroughly considered, and I can tell you the costs of that have significantly increased. The other thing that I wanted to point out is in 2016, when we were approaching the construction phases of this project, we, with our rate advisory committee back then, we estimated when this project was all said and done, we were going to be right around $105 a month for the typical water bill. And where we are looking at right now is about that. It's not the lumpiness of getting there has been different, but we are on track with those estimates that came out in 2016 of what we thought this was going to end up costing each individual customer. So despite the changes and the increases, we stayed in line there. And then lastly, I'll just mention that we are aggressively trying to find additional dollars. We are trying to get money from the federal government for them to help us on this project. So we haven't had the success that we'd like to have at this point, but we are not done swinging at that apple. So just so you know.
I think I saw a news report from the junior senator saying that there was an allocation of a loan in the order of $600 million to you folks, but I don't know for sure the dynamics of that. Sometimes they can tell you a story, or they can make an announcement, and you have to wait a year for something to materialize, I suppose.
That is our WIFIA loan, our water. That is in fact the low interest EPA loan that I was talking about, and so TVW got about a $388 million loan. The city of Hillsborough got about a $250 million loan, and taken together, that is the loan that Senator Merkley was referring to.
Okay, it's a loan, not much of a grant, right?
Yeah, but it's at 1.35% interest.
Yeah.
And that just happened to be when we closed. Interest rates were quite low at that point. There are some other key advantages of that loan. That's the one that we're able to turn into that $6 million of additional benefit for our customers. It also is spread out over a 35-year period. So it gives us a little bit more time. We're also able to structure it so our first payment starts in a little bit later after the program is complete, after we've reduced our purchase water cost from Portland. We're able then to shift over to making that debt service payment. So that loan's been very beneficial for our customers.
Okay. Well, at least something really has turned out pretty good that way. It seems like, that is a big part, of the whole project cost. I'm sure it's going to help out. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, William. And I'm not seeing any other comments in the Q&A or in the chat at this time. So, Tom, we will turn it back over to you for some final closing remarks this evening.
I just, again, want to thank everybody for participating. We reminder that we are accepting comments until 4 o'clock next Thursday, the 24th. Again, we provide all of those comments we receive directly to our board unedited. So the board gets to see what you have to say on this. And every one of your comments are read and considered. So if you have anything you want to send, please go online. I think Frank provided a link in the chat that you can also provide written comments there. And with that, we will close this public meeting and this opportunity for all of you to weigh in. And again, really appreciate everybody's time and attention to this. Thank you.